You're probably one of the first TV doctors. So you were my role model.
Yeah.
But you didn't have a role model.
No, and I was figuring it out as I went along.
Today, I'm joined by a legend in the aesthetics industry, Dr. Tijion Esho.
I always felt different as a kid. I didn't know if it was a superpower or was a disadvantage inside. I was quite scared and worried about what people's opinions would be. My parents really got upset with that because they came across from Nigeria, from Africa, sacrificed a lot to give an education. I was worried because then when I went on my first work experience, I didn't really see black doctors, right? I didn't see anything that I could look at and go, oh, him, should I really even be here? Where I would go, no, I've got the control here. You might see me this way, but I'm gonna do this. When I got to med school and then I saw plastic, this is where I can, have that artistic bit, but the canvas is the face and the body, and I can do the medicine side.
Amazing, you could just do that and really just fly through it.
For me, the biggest thing was social media. And when I kind of didn't care what people thought, and that's where I saw things.
Hi, I'm Dr. Jane Leonard. I'm a GP and cosmetic doctor, and this is my podcast, The Confidence Clinic. Every week, I'm going to be sitting down with different guests to talk about their life stories. We're going to be talking about how they got to where they got, the challenges they faced along the way, and how their confidence has evolved along their journeys. Hi, I'm Dr. Jane Leonard, and this is my podcast, The Confidence Clinic. Today, I'm joined by a legend in the aesthetics industry, Dr. Tijion Esho. Dr. Esho is a well-known and multi-award-winning cosmetic doctor. He's got clinics all over the UK, which have just extended globally to Dubai. He's also a well-known TV doctor. He's a resident doctor on E4's Body Shockers and Body Fixers. Thank you, TJ, so much for joining me.
Thank you for having me. Sorry, I'm in my work stuff.
Oh, that's all right. I've got like my wedding makeup on. I have all time than you.
Wait, wedding makeup? Something
look,
you got to tell me? There's something else happening right now.
My friend Steph did it for me.
Okay.
So for these chats about the Confidence Clinic, I would like to kind of start off from where you are now and really reflect back to you being little, to your childhood, how your confidence was and how it's evolved to where you've ended up now.
Okay, cool.
So looking back, what was little TJ like?
Little TJ was a little bit cocky. I'm not gonna lie. Definitely very cheeky. Definitely wanting to be the showman a lot of the time. But I think there was two parts to me. That was me around where people I knew, but when I was in a comfortable environment, but when I was in a new environment, inside I might have been like that, but inside, outside I was like that, but inside I was quite, scared and worried about what people's opinions would be on me and how would they take me, because I knew I was different. I always felt different as a kid growing up, and I become comfortable with that as I've got older. But then I wasn't sure. I didn't know if it was a superpower or it was a disadvantage. And I think as I got older, it became clearer to me which one it was.
So as a child then, all those years ago, you could really feel that you had, like, so when you say superpower, but you had this ability.
Yeah, I did. So I had a little bit. So my kind of life in school had two pathways it could have taken, because I was naturally very clever. I had a photographic memory, but I was very cheeky, and so I always got into trouble in school because. And what happened earlier on, probably when I was around 7, around that time, I was always outside the class. I was always working outside. I was that boy that was on the desk outside the class, not allowed to be in.
Really?
I would always get in trouble and be cheeky. And
your teachers hated you.
Oh, they
if you're
hated
that good
me.
but that bad.
Yeah, and I think, to be fair, at that stage they didn't realize I was bright. They just thought I was a kind of troubled kid. And my parents really got upset with that because they came across from Nigeria, from Africa, sacrificed a lot to give an education for me and then my sister who came after. A next step forward, so they felt, my God, we've done all this and he's getting into all this trouble. And it luckily took one teacher, which probably changed everything around for me, because her name's Miss Ital, and she looked at me and she got my parents and she says, I don't think he's a troubled kid. I think he's bored, and she goes, look, can we do a few things? And she said, right, I want to first move him up a year and I want to give him work after school. And they were like, you sure? They were like, she's like, yeah, let's see how this goes. And I immediately settled down. And he realized it was that. What was happening was I got everything in class very quick.
Yeah.
And then by that time I was bored. And so I was then distracting everybody else. Whereas actually, when they put me a year ahead and things were a bit more intense, or they gave me more things, the more stuff they gave me, the more I would take
So
in.
they moved you literally up a year.
Moved me up a year and did that. So, for me, I always say, well, teachers are so important because my life could have gone one or two ways. It could have been, right, this kid is just dismissed. He's a troublesome kid. We've not got time for him. Keep him out of class, not apply to anything. But this one lady saw past that and went, no, actually, let's make him apply himself.
Yeah.
And that put me towards the path that I'm on now. So I'm really grateful to her.
There's so many amazing things, and that the main one being, as I'm listening to you talk, is that you remember her name.
Yeah.
All this shit. Like I remember a couple of teachers' names, but not in the same.
Yeah,
way
I've tried
that you
to
do.
find her.
That's
So
amazing.
if she's watching this, I would love to connect with her. I have tried to find her for like probably the last 10, 15 years now because I owe her a lot in that space of time. Because yes, my parents were doing their best at home, but within the school system, we know, and it's unfortunate now with the pressures, kids can get lost in that system, particularly in the numbers of kids in the class and everything else. And I was in a big, inner city school, so it wasn't like there was availability to focus on one child. So for her to pick me out, see that potential, and then do that, I'm really grateful to.
And I suppose that works in many ways, doesn't it? Because even if you were struggling the opposite way, that you needed more support, it's those people that can kind of like see of who you are with like an eye of kindness rather than looking at you as being just a destructive, maybe hyperactive ADHD kid who just, it's amazing.
And that's the first bits I think that built a bit more confidence in myself because, like I said, I was always kind of cocky, cheeky, and doing that way, but I didn't really know where I sat in the world of education or ability in that way. I knew I could pick up things quickly. I didn't know that was a photographic memory or called that. I realized that when I was a bit older, like teenage. But then with the teacher doing that and how they responded and how I responded in grades, I thought, okay, I am a bit different and maybe I can do more. And then that helped reinforce things for me because it was like a kind of pattern. The better I did, the more I believed I could do certain things, and that pushed on forward after.
It's that thing, isn't it, of like the self-belief and the evidence that you show yourself that when you were actually moved up, you weren't going to let everyone down. You showed your mum and dad who had invested everything in you and your teacher for taking that punt of like believing in you. And then you just continue to kind of roll with it, with that success and also the evidence that you can do it. I suppose then looking back then, TJ, like being younger, did you have any role models in your life that you looked up to?
That was hard because probably like everybody else in terms of football and things like that, you had Ian Wright, all of these bits and stuff, Arsenal fan as well. And in music as well, because we had a lot of people that grew up in my area in North London, Edmonton. So you had So Solid Crew, you had everybody like that. So these are the people you wanted to be like at school. But actually, in terms of what I wanted to do, I didn't see people do what I do. So I don't know, many people don't realize I didn't want to go into medicine first. So I wanted to be an artist. I wanted to sketch and draw. I was really good at that. I had a creative mind. I could sketch and draw. I did that for my cousins all the time. But my dad, being an African parent, true, he was like, that's not a career. He was like, you can either be a dentist, doctor, lawyer, accountant, or engineer. So I was very much forced at that point, and we battled each other to kind of pick one of five. And I know a lot of people say that's not fair, but I get it. When you've got that kind of sacrifice from a different generation coming, they don't want you to waste your potential, and they want you in something safe that's going to support a potential family going forward and change the fortunes of you.
And I think half the time when you're that age, how do you know? Like you make
don't.
that call, don't you? So young, like 17 or whatever, and even leading up to that, even younger. And you think, my dad was similar. I was sat there the night before doing my UCAS form. I was like, because I wanted to be a physio to end up being a horse riding physio. And he's like, look, you're not going to do that, are you? And I was like, no. He's like, just do medicine. I was like, yeah, but I don't want to. And he's like, just do it.
Yeah.
As we filled out the forms, and here we are. So I think it is at that age, and just as life and chapters close and you grow and evolve, depending on which way you end up, at least, your dad always had your best interests at heart.
He did. But, I think when you go back into saying that role model bit, I was worried because then when I went on my first work experience, I didn't really see black doctors, right? I didn't. Even being in the inner city hospital, I didn't see that. I didn't see on TV black doctors. I didn't see anything that I could look at and go, him, I want to be him. And also in my school, even though I was doing really well within my school, it was a really underprivileged inner city school. And I remember in the sixth form when I told them that, look, I'd picked medicine, my dad had said this, they were all like, it wasn't like a supportive bit. It was a bit of a, well, what other things if
Same
that doesn't happen?
I went to a normal school.
There you go.
And it's like,
And they don't, and I think that's sometimes a disadvantage because I've got 2 kids now. When I look at private and thing, I think when you're in that private school environment, there's an expectation. So people are like, right, actually, you can be this, you can do that. Where sometimes you're in the public system, they're almost like, oh, maybe
Really?
not,
Yeah.
really,
Yeah.
and I don't think that's right because sometimes that can take away dreams from young children that
Yeah.
they can achieve that. And I think if they feel as valued as they do sometimes in the private system, they probably have more people achieving. But I was really lucky that I had that confidence through my parents. They
Yeah.
were like, this is what you're gonna do. This is what you're gonna be. Look, see what you've done so far just by applying yourself and do it. I wasn't still sure. I'm not gonna lie because I was really in love with doing art and design. But I think when I got to med school and then I saw plastics, I almost thought, oh, okay, this is where I can do both now. This is where I can, have that artistic bit, but the canvas is the face and the body,
Yeah.
and I can do the medicine side. And that's when it kind of came together a bit.
So you chose actually one of the most competitive streams, isn't it?
Yeah,
And
yeah,
obviously,
yeah.
no, speaking to you in this way, knowing
Yeah.
you more, it fits your personality.
Well, it's funny you say
Classic.
that because it literally was like at Scrubs. You probably say
Yeah,
at med
yeah.
school, right? Like you look at the people in the year, and it was like TJ, surgeon.
Yeah, yeah.
It was like this. So everybody.
What was that guy called? The I can see him now, but I can't think of what he's called.
It's annoying. I just had it in my head, and it went in Scrubs. It will come to me in the middle
Yeah,
of it
yeah.
being in there. But yeah, Turk.
Yes,
Yeah.
him.
So
Yeah,
literally, I was Turk, right? Okay, I had more hair then, but like it was like that, and I think you were stereotyped into that particular typeset.
Yeah.
So for me, that's all I knew. I thought that was what I was gonna be. I did my junior rotation. I applied for my surgical ST. I got that. I carried on to that. It was only until about registrar level that things kind of
Yeah.
changed because I think probably similar to you or similar to different people, the reality of what you think something's gonna be
Yeah.
and what it is when you do it isn't the same sometimes.
Totally, but also not taken away from you the way sort of non-medics won't really get that when you're going through every step that you just described so well. You do medical school, you do your junior house, obviously, then you choose your path. Actually getting into all those things is extremely competitive, particularly what you chose, plastics, and it's because there's limited numbers. Everyone wants to do it. It's seen as a more glamorous thing. Obviously, like you say, when it comes to the raw truth, it might not always fit that idea.
This is it.
But still, compared to some things,
Oh,
but it's
yeah.
amazing you could just do that and really just fly through it.
Yeah, I think in terms of a professional sense, in terms of exams and things, I was very lucky because that's when I realized it was very much a photographic memory. When I would get asked questions, I was reading it out word for word like it was in the book.
Yeah.
So it was like very much that pattern recognition. It faded a bit as I've got older now, but it's still there. In terms of probably myself, that's the first time I started to feel a bit of discrimination, because I grew up in Edmonton, which is a multicultural area, right? There was everything, every nationality, and what I loved, even though it was an underprivileged area, I got to be exposed to so many different cultures, which rounded me as a person. Problem came was I took that acceptance and didn't really know parts of the world. So when you're going into medicine, it then becomes a bit more narrowed. I was one of 2 black people in my year.
Really?
Right? And we went
this
to...
was what, like in central London?
Exactly.
Yeah?
No, I went to med school in Leicester.
Oh, okay, right,
Yeah,
okay.
so like I went across to there. Then it was narrowed down because then on your rotations, you rotate out to different hospitals. And I went to a hospital where I was literally the only black doctor at that time. And I remember it like it was yesterday. That's the start of affecting my confidence, but making me feel a bit different. Was when we were supposed to do baby checks. When you're doing a pediatric round and do. And
I still have to do them sometimes with
this is
GP.
it. Yeah, this is it. And
Yeah.
I was always fear of dropping a baby
Yeah,
and all of that.
exactly.
And my ward partner, she did hers, and she was a white girl, did it. And then I went to do it, and the mum said, no, not him. And I didn't even click or register that it was that until after. And I remember the ward doctor senior that was with us said, look, you okay? Everything. And I was like, yeah. And it was not until I got home and it hit me, and that really, really upset me because I never looked at myself that differently in that way. I knew it. I saw it happen to my dad. I saw different things happen to my dad, him getting pulled over by the police a lot when he used to drive, little things like that you're aware of, but never myself personally. And that was the first time that I started getting that, and that did affect me because I started thinking, well, am I supposed to be here? I didn't even want to be in the first place. My dad convinced me
Yeah.
this is it. You know, actually, I don't deserve, I can't see myself. I don't see myself. I'm one of two here. You know, this patient has seen me this way. Should I really even be here?
Yeah.
So that was the biggest kind of question in
And
my own
the
confidence.
wildest thing about that is it wasn't that long ago.
No. And it was hard. And like I said, I remember speaking to my mum about it because I was really upset. Actually, the first thing that brought me to tears. And my mum, and I don't get emotional like that. And my mum, I remember her speaking to me and she was saying, look, she said a very important for me to me that I use to this day. And she goes, look, I brought you into this world, but it's up for you to tell the world when you have arrived. Okay. And I want you to remember that. And that kind of let me know that in a way, I choose how the world sees
Wow.
me.
What did she say?
And
We say
so,
that again.
so she said, I brought you as a mom, I
Yeah.
brought you into this world, but you as a person will choose to
when-
tell the world when you have arrived.
Amazing.
And I use that all the time. I use that with my kids now. And I think that's a way of kind of saying, like, you do have that power.
Yeah.
You know, you do have that. And I used to just always say that to myself, always still keep saying that to myself. And I think that's which pushed me forward, little bits like that, where I would go, no, I've got the control here.
Yeah.
You might see me this way, but I'm going to do this.
And I
it
think
pushed me
even,
further.
obviously, from going through that junior doctor training, obviously not experiencing the racist things that you have, but it reminded me of when you're that sort of junior in your work, because we weren't we? Like,
Yeah.
now when I'm doing GP stuff,
Yeah.
I'm just used to it, and I look back, and think, God, I remember when I was trying to go, how on earth do you know the things and have that confidence to carry out the role with such confidence, conviction, and knowledge? But back then, I always the shakiness was that we have to learn on the job like everybody does, but our job is a bit of a ropey one to learn on. You
Yeah.
can't be seen that you don't know what you're doing in front of someone's mum and newborn baby.
Yeah.
So that as a baseline blanket layer that goes across every medical student, that we all have to learn how to survive in that. But then adding in the way that your judgment goes beyond those skills, what you're trying to prove.
Yeah, honestly, I remember
Like,
still.
what can you do?
Yeah, I remember my first shift. Like after that had happened, and I had my kind of first night shift, and I almost quit medicine that day. Like I remember it. I was on call for general medicine. Like I was everywhere.
Yeah.
As you know, your reg was somewhere trapped in somewhere else.
bleeps going.
Yes, your bleeps going. I arrive on the infectious disease ward. I've got a lady who's got HIV, pregnant, has needing cannulation, can't get access, sepsis. I'm like, what do you expect me to do? I just write notes.
Yeah,
like, I can't do this.
Oh
like,
God! And when you're saying all that, I'm like, oh yeah.
and
then there's another one going, what's the list?
And where's the list? I'm rolling this paper. I'm trying to do this thing. I'm calling for my SHO. They're saying,
And they're like,
you can't
sorry, we're
do
in a
it.
cardiac arrest, can't help you. Deal
This
with
is it. And I remember going home that day, literally my hands shaking and thinking, I'm not cut out for this. And I thought, I need to quit, And again, my mum came in at that side. The talks I had with her to calm down, to not expect to know it all in one day, to remember what you've done to get here in the first place and calm me right back down, because I could have been in a situation where I just went, no, this isn't what I wanted. I was told by Dad, this is the way to go, and leave it. But that kind of talking me back down into place let me kind of refocus. And I think what I realized from then was no matter how bad everything was, I always got through. So then that pattern recognition, when things were bad, even though it felt at that moment bad, I remembered I'd always get through it. And that was then how I used that to apply. So anytime there was something bad or a stressful situation, I'll be like, this is going to pass.
Exactly. I do exactly the same thing. When I look back at things now where I get challenged or stressed out with things, or a good way, I feel really fortunate and privileged that I've done that medical training, been involved in so many life or death things, literally, and been part of it and got through it one way or the other. And like it does shape you in so many ways. So part of the time I'm thinking, Jesus, it can't be as bad as the stress then to what I'm doing now. Like nothing compares to that. Yeah. But also like this kind of leads on nicely to, in the end you did exit that pathway. What were the things like that kind of influenced your decision, other than we've kind of said?
So the biggest thing that influenced me was I was on my plastic rotation then in Bradford, and my bosses then had all their private clinics. That was the first time I was introduced to non-surgical aesthetics, and I would go there after work to see that. So you don't really see it in the NHS, Botox, fillers, or anything like that, and I didn't really see it as a person. It wasn't really in my environment. And so when I started seeing that, particularly with lasers, I love gadgets and tools, I loved that being there. I also loved the autonomy. So what was happening, as I said, you're in theatre, you're a thing, but you think you're going to be doing all these operations, all this at this stage, and you're not. You're like doing basic stuff still. You're not getting your hands dirty. There's not really autonomy. The bed managers are telling you what you have to do. And when I was in these clinics, I felt like I was my own boss. I was managing my own patient load. I was doing these treatments. I was getting more advanced. I was getting the satisfaction from the patients directly. And I knew my boss said, like, at a point, he said, "You're getting busier than me." And he was like, and then I remember going back to him in clinic one day, we were actually in theatre. And I said, if I focused on the stuff we're doing in clinic and did this as a career, you know, what would you say about it? Do you think that's the right thing to do? And I remember him pausing and going to me, things have changed now. He goes, you know, before when I was growing up, this was a bit on the side that you could do as part of your practice, but you can legitimately build a practice of that on its own now. And I was like, okay. And then you could still see I wasn't convinced. And he was like, well, and he goes, also, if you fail, you can always come back.
Yeah.
And it was just that simple statement. Yeah. Like, I was like,
the NHS or whatever isn't going to
yeah. I was like, yeah. And I think that's a message to kind of anyone or young people that sometimes they think if they make a decision, it's that and nothing else. And he was like, no, you are educated doctor. You've been trained to this level. Yeah. If this doesn't work out and that's where you want to go, you can come back. Yeah. And it was that simple statement that made me go, okay, I have that confidence to do it. It was different when I went back to my dad because he was like, hold on. So you've got this NHS job with an NHS pension that is secure, and you're telling me you want to leave to do, what is it called, Botox?
Yeah, my dad still is going, what is this Botox thing? I was like, Dad, after 10 years, you can really like say it's working out okay. Yeah. So like bloody Botox.
Yeah, he was like, Botox, what? But he was an accountant. And what was great was him being an accountant. The one thing he did understand was numbers. So he was like, look, I don't understand any of this, but from a numbers side, if you get to a stage, he goes, you're not leaving the NHS job. He goes, you can do this, Botox things, whatever you want to do outside of it, until you are earning the same amount as you are in the NHS, and that is sustained for at least 6 months. Then we can talk. You know, so that's what happened. Advice. And that's what happened. So we did that, you know, 6 months, we went back to him and he was like, okay, you know, and then he was like, okay, maybe we get you to a point where you're locuming. So therefore you're balancing your time. So you're weaning down your hours. And I always, again, give that as a good thing to people coming into it. You don't need to just jump, you know, you can make an educated decision and risk. And that's what I did. And before I knew it, it overtook. And for me, the biggest thing was social media. You know, I think at the time when I was doing it, not a lot of people were using Instagram in the way that they do now. I was like literally posting every before and after when I was in clinic there. And that just grew for me. And it grew very, very, very fast. I always try and tell people word of mouth is key, but like social media is like word of mouth on steroids.
Yeah, it's a reach, isn't it?
It's just a reach. And if you
and
use
I think
it
shows your confidence as well. I think in that industry now, we all know that it's ingrained to us that it's a must, isn't it?
Yeah.
But that way that you're showing the before and afters gives this message of confidence in your work.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I know what I'm doing. I'm going to show it to you.
Yeah.
And I think that really is one of the first people doing it. Because I remember, because obviously I know you now, but back then you're one of the people that I looked up to. No, it's true though. Because when I started doing it, it was like you only find out about it because it's not something that gets spoken about as a career path or option as part of our general careers. I'm a GP trainee. I kind of like, is it the right thing to do? And you know, my mum and dad were like, oh God, you know, you're better off being in GP. Where I'm like, Mum, the stress, it's out of control. Whereas you know, they just don't understand because they have no experience of it, I suppose.
They don't. And I think, you know, that, like you say, that confidence to do it, I guess I underplayed that in myself. I think combining that when I kind of didn't care what people thought, I think that's where I got to a stage of not caring. And that's where I saw things grow. Because I think for a while before that, I was very over analytical about what people thought, if I posted this, what people would say. And I got to a point, I remember sitting down thinking about it, and it was with a girl I was seeing at the time, we were talking about this, and she was like, you would do a lot better if you stopped caring about what people thought. Yeah. And it was, again, these simple statements, and I remember thinking that guy, because she was like, you know, if you look at everything in life, there's always going to be someone that's going to criticize you, there's always going to be people that are going to praise you, no matter what you do.
Exactly.
So you might as well do what you want to do.
Exactly, yeah.
And I was like, you know, and I started doing that, and I would do that. And initially, I would post, and literally I would get 10 likes, one of them being my mum, you know, at that time. But then it grew. And what it did was then it grew more, and it grew more the more I did. And the more, even though I thought I was in this own world of only me seeing it, not really caring, people started to care. And I think yeah, doing that, I think we can, as especially as medics, worry so much about judgment from our colleagues, judgment from
I
patients,
think
judgment from
particularly
everybody
then,
else.
because I remember looking back on it,
Yeah.
a lot of because I was doing core medical training and I quit that,
Mm.
and then what did I do? I did Botox training, and then I was like, actually, I shouldn't just give all this up. So I did GP as well. But a lot of the times I chopped and changed and obviously didn't really know what I was doing. A lot of my friends and colleagues at the time just kind of looked down on me a bit. And probably rightly so, because I didn't give up on it, but my head wasn't. I was just like, do I really? It's the only job I think that as you get more senior, the pressure on you really matches it.
Yeah.
In every other career, you can be like, right, you've got to
Ease
really
up.
graft, then you ease up
Yeah.
the top. You get to consultant level. My sister's a
Yeah.
consultant pediatrician,
Yeah.
and her life is it's a lot. Like, and when I say a lot, I don't think you understand the dimensions of the layers of that responsibility and how when you carry in that burden, I use the word burden loosely, but I mean over that time, it does. It's a lot.
It really does. It really does.
So I think, but people definitely didn't necessarily support me,
No.
but they now want to know me now because they want to learn.
This is it. I think
Yeah.
nobody. So at the beginning, I always say, at the beginning they'll doubt you, and then when you do and you're achieving that success, then they'll believe you. And it's that area of doubt where you have to believe in yourself at that point more than when nobody does. There's a lot of judgment that comes, but I always say that judgment, and I do say this, unfortunately, the more successful you become, it's there even harder. Like, I know a lot of people go to me, oh, T-Wa, I wish I was where you are, what you're doing. And I say, do you really? Because, I used to think where if I got to the stage where I was now, everything would be perfect.
Yeah.
I would have all what I want. I would be all the balance in life, everything. And what I realized, when you're climbing that mountain and you get to that theoretical top of that mountain, you're like, it's not what you thought it was going to be. It isn't. The air's a lot thinner up there. It's a lot more lonely up there. There's a lot more job. And you can become, as I say to some people, not bitter, but you can become quite cynical in terms of how you see people change, how different things happen around you. And I think I've been just very lucky that I have group of friends from day one that see me in that way and know me in that way. So I hold on to that despite what everything else happens.
It's that thing again that others saying, like, be careful what you wish for, isn't it?
Yeah.
And also, like, people will know you now as the person at the top, but no one sees or remembers the journey like you do.
Yeah.
So it's like it's not just like, oh yeah, you decided to do it, you just did, didn't you? So I want to be like that.
Yeah.
No, actually, this has been a bit of a thing.
Yeah.
Like, you really had to put
sacrifice. No birthdays. There's a lot of birthdays missed.
Yeah.
A lot of friends parties. A lot of things that you sacrifice. I say you almost have to be obsessed with that particular thing to achieve that certain thing. And then when you achieve it, like I say, there is a bit of a disappointment because you think it's going to be the answers to everything you have, but it isn't. I'm grateful, don't get me wrong, but I have a different perspective on life in terms of what makes you happy in the end.
This is a good point actually to talk about. Another brave, confident thing that you did is you're probably one of the first TV doctors. So you definitely have done your fair share of daytime TV this morning, all those things, live TV, which carries its own pressures. What I'm fine about, believe you me. And then secondly, the E4 show. So body fix is not right, I call it body snap. You know the one. So with that, when you went from that journey, how did you feel? Because I looked up at you when I did Embarrassing Bodies. When I was sort of manifesting that, you were someone I'd look at. If I was going to do a vision board, you'd be on it. That's what I want to do. But so you were my role model. But you didn't have a role model.
No, and I was figuring it out as I went along. And I think for me, what happened was I always tell people, are like, oh, you're so confident thing. I said, it wasn't like that always. I said, the first time I did something, it was on BBC Newcastle. I remember it like it was yesterday. It was a procedure, had to do live. I almost vomited before having to go on air. And my hand was shaking so much, I had to anchor it with my other hand to keep it stable. And I remember thinking, I'm never doing a TV thing again.
And it was live? Like a live, what sort of injection was it?
It was like a hand lift. It was like rejuvenating your hands. And I remember thinking, I never want to do this again. This is thing. And I was a confident person, but I realized putting that scenario, because it was new, I never knew what that
The
felt
worst
like.
thing about that is, I think, because you're doing not only medical
Yeah.
or knowledge talking, which I am the worst at stumbling my words and getting
Yeah.
mixed up, but actually holding a needle in the tiniest pace,
Doing a
do
tiny
you think that we
pace.
can be like this all day long under that pressure? I don't think I could do that.
It's very different, and I think it's a skill set that I've learned now. So now when I do it and other people are filming, they're like, man, you're relaxed and thing. I said, I wasn't always this way.
Yeah.
But now, like you say, I explain to people, because people think it's easy. And they go, oh, well, I'll do the TV stuff if I got the opportunity. I was like, would you? Because you've got someone speaking in your ear, telling you what to do. You're looking at the other people in the studio, they're doing it. You're injecting the person, you're making sure that person's okay. And then you're trying to talk at the same time. It's a lot of things happening at one go that actually can throw you off. And it takes a lot of different skill sets to
It
be able
does.
to do.
And it's also, you're in that position as number one, a doctor and also an expert in your field.
Yeah.
So it's like the last thing you want to be doing is
It's
mixing
something to
words
go
up.
wrong.
Yeah, exactly.
You know, when I was on this morning, I had to do 5 tweakment cases live. You know, we all know there can be bleeding, bruising, whatever happening. I had to do 5 live that morning in the day and then showed it before and after. So no matter how experienced I was thinking, my God, please make all of these okay, you know, and they were, thank goodness. But it's a lot of pressure. And I think a lot of people, again, want that. They're like, oh, I want that side, don't realize the job. And then the other part, your personal life, when you do start being, people start becoming interested in you in a different way, and that becomes judged and everything else. And so it's hard, you know. I always say to people, if you really want to do it, make sure you have a thick skin, make sure you're prepared for it, and also make sure you have your life outside of it. Don't think this is going to be the be all and end all, because if you are, it can become a bit
advice.
of a place.
I suppose the last thing to kind of wrap things up about this our chat is talking about how you look after yourself. I think a lot of things that we all talk about now generally again on Instagram is like looking after your mental health along this journey. What tips or what things do you do to make sure that you're fit for purpose and to keep up with it and be a dad and be a wife?
I've not been good at that. I would say I probably overworked to a detriment to myself, and I only probably realized that when my dad passed away last year. That was where everything came to a head for me. And I think when something like that happens, it gave me these reflection points now, because my dad was very much like me, work hard all his life. Thought, when I retire, then that's when I'll relax. And he didn't get to retirement, and he had prostate cancer and died. And it made me realize, oh my God, if I continue, I'm going to repeat this same pattern. I'm going to just keep all about work and then think, oh, when I'll retire, I'll enjoy. And I might not get that. So I started to look at enjoying the journey, not just the destination, focusing on the things that made me happy. So I think for my own mental health, I focus on trying doing stuff I enjoy. So my downtime, I don't put myself in situations that I don't enjoy. So you won't see me at a lot of conferences, because sometimes I think the environment's a bit negative. I'll spend it with my friends or my kids. You know, with my hours, if I find myself getting more tired, I will balance those and I reduce those, because there's only so much money you can have and use. And
also to do a good job, like you forget that everybody wants you to perform the best for them at that time, and you know, for the good of them, you have to sometimes pull it back. Brilliant. Thank you so much. You've covered so much. It's so amazing to speak to you.
Absolute pleasure. Thank you for having me.
Thank you so much.